Hey everyone, welcome to the Bambu Studio Basics course or class that we teach at FundedYouth. This is a very introductory level course where we cover the moving tool. We assume you've never touched 3D printing, or maybe you have a little bit of experience and you've never touched the Bambu Studio. The first thing we want to do, obviously, is start with a file. So what we're going to do is we can do this one of two ways. We can come over here once Bambu Studio is open and click on the home button and then locate, I'm going to use a droid on this example, is you can click on the online models here, and I'd recommend this first and foremost. The only downside to this environment right here is you can't usually see the reviews, which are nice to have. So at the same time, it might be good to open up a browser and go to MakerWorld.com and then look around for something. For this example, you will have to always be logged into Bambu Studio. We likely are logged into one of our sub-accounts on the computers in our computer lab at FundedYouth. I'm at my house right now doing this tutorial, so I'm not logged into our accounts. But for this example, I'm going to be using, if I can find it, there it is, the Battle Droid B1 from Star Wars. This thing is massive, 500% it says. If I click on it in the web browser, notice that it gives me the ability to download the CAD files, open it directly if I have Bambu Studio open, or download the 3MF. We're not going to go over that, but it allows me to view previews, validating that it's actually been printed before. It tells me recommended possible materials that can be used for this if I don't have them, if I want to print it exactly as I see it. And then as I scroll down, there is detailed information about the print. So there's the original size. This is a full size for the Lego. Like, it probably looks about maybe 2 feet in height. Yeah, something about that maybe. Or actually 22 centimeters is what it says. Okay, so we come down here, and again, the benefit to the website is it lets us look at what people have printed. So reviews, they show actually somebody else has printed it, another person has printed, people pointing out that they had some issues, explaining what the issues might be for other people. And this is really good when people actually talk about it. That way we know if it's printable. If there are no reviews, you can't guarantee that it's going to print right off the back, or if there's what the failures might be. Let me switch back to Bambu Studio. Back in Bambu Studio, we can actually just open the file directly up. So I can click on the no AMS version. I can't, oh, actually, here we go. It doesn't give me the reviews. That's the one thing I don't get to see in the actual studio, but it's got downloads, it's got good ratings, how many times it's been printed, how many people like it. And from here, we can simply click download and open. Now, I am on a Bambu Studio A1 printer, and this was actually designed in an X1C carbon. Many times I found that people for figurines, they design it on the A1 Mini, and at FundedYouth, we have the X1Cs and the P1Ss, so I need to make sure I say yes, switch now, and select the correct printer. So I'm going to say switch now. It's going to update the layout a little bit, not by much since my build plate's pretty much the same size, I just don't have an enclosure. And then the next thing I want to do is make sure I have the correct, aside from the correct device, make sure the device is correct in the selected if we've enabled that feature. If not, don't worry about it. Let's take a look before we do anything else, is the filament types. So in most cases, you'll likely be printing in PLA. Unless you need something rigid or heat resistant, then you'll likely print in PETG or TPU or ABS or high quality frequency, but usually it's between PLA and PETG. So let's say you planned on the printer itself, the physical printer has PETG in it for this color and this material. You'll need to make sure you come over here to where it says PLA, and you'll select likely Polymaker. For use cases at FundedYouth, we found that the Polymaker name with PETG actually works the best with our printers. I'm not sure why, it just does. It's just been our experience. No real reason besides that. Personally, when I'm at home, I just set it at the basic Bambu PETG. And that doesn't really matter for me. But again, unless you're printing in something else, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to come back over here set it at PLA, and then we're pretty much good to go. In most cases, especially if there's good reviews and back and forth, you're likely good to just come up here and click Slice Plate for the current plate, and then send it over to an SD card. And it will actually be prepped and ready. The supports will be set up on it most cases. Most cases, not always, most cases. The brims will be in place if a brim needs to be there or not. And then maybe if a skirt exists, the skirt will be. And you're like, well, I don't know these terms. So let's go over that now before we export it. So right now I clicked Slice Plate. Let's jump back into the Prepare tab. In the Prepare tab, I'm going to, actually let's stay on this. I'm going to click on the Auto Orient. What this will do is this will automatically take all the parts I have here and adjust them for the fastest, most efficient print time. Now, the designer put these here in this way because they believe this is the best way to print. The machine doesn't care about that. It's just going to figure out the fastest and most efficient way to print. Notice it rotated everything flat. This actually might be a better solution, but may or may not, depending on, yeah, so there's going to be like tiny supports under here, but it will be flat for other parts. Another thing that you might want to take a look at is this feature right here. Arrange all objects. That means everything. So be wary when clicking this. And most likely it'll be something like that. And you'll click Arrange, and it will readjust everything to one build plate. If you have multiple colors on a printer, that's fine, but we recommend printing single colors per plate. If that's an option, like eyes already if eyes are embedded and it's like white, black, and then it's a red color for whatever figurine it is, and it's all contained, then yes, you're stuck with printing it all in one plate. But if that is not required and you have the option to print them in separate pieces and colors for each of the parts, we'd recommend keep them on separate build plates. And you're like, I don't know how to create build plates. How am I supposed to know how to do that? Well, you can come up here and say Add Plate, and you can take an item and simply move it to the plate. All right. The next thing we're going to take a look at is skirts and adhesions types. Actually, you know what? Let's jump into support. So we're going to come over here to support. If I turn support off, we will run into errors. So I click on slice. It'll give me a warning too, which is nice. It's be like, by the way, there's some floating hanging objects that would likely not print really well. For example, this right here. There's nothing under it, so it may sloop down or drop down a little bit when it prints it. The head itself, this might be okay, but more than likely the issue is here. And then also on this plate here, that's not going to be able to print effectively. It needs something under it to provide support. So we will come back here to prepare, turn it back on, and in most cases, you'll be good with Tree Auto. You can set it at normal, but normal prints more material, and that means it's going to cost a little bit more for the additional material. We'd recommend Tree in most cases. I'll take a look at that right now, and you can see what the difference is. So there's normal. Here's Tree. A lot less material. A lot easier to break off, we found too. Next thing, adhesion types. So let's come over here. Adhesion is actually the best way to look at this print here. We're going to go to Other. Skirt. A skirt is useful sometimes on the Bambu, not always. If you have multiple tiny little parts and you want to make sure the head unit doesn't go outside too far, or kind of like just a guide to keep it within the lines. So if we set that and we slice it, you will now see a ring that goes around the outside of these parts. And there it is. There's the little ring right here. Obviously there's brim here, so that's actually not needed, and this is what brim is. So the difference between a skirt is an outer line, kind of like a guide. A brim is the first layer, very thin, just extending out to create additional adhesion for each of the parts that needs it. Obviously this part here doesn't really need much brim. It's got brim for the supports, but it's a solid flat object. Everything else has auto brim turned on. So I'm going to reset this, turn that off. So if you see brim right here, we have auto. If I say no brim and I slice the plate, we still have tree supports that have brim, but it's not focused on the hand where it might actually fail and shift it off to the side. I've had that happen with a full-on piece that was about 70% of the way done. Very simple design, and it kicked it off the printer because the head moved it. There wasn't enough adhesion, so brims are definitely necessary. Some parts, let's say we have like a dome here with an inner part, or we had like a Tetris balance game piece. We printed like hundreds of those a while back just for games, for sitting out in the front and playing. And we found the best way was to have inner brims only. You could also set to outer brim, not necessary in this case since it'll automatically infer that for us. So we click slice plate again. And there's the outer brim. Okay. One of the other things I forgot to add, if I haven't gone over yet, is moving. So let's come over to this tool right here. Let's go over to the basics. If I click on an object, or actually you notice I'm rotating. If I click on my left mouse, I can rotate around. Doesn't matter what it is, it's going to focus. If I click on the middle mouse, I get the pan ability. That's the zoom button, so I can both zoom in and zoom out, and I can click and hold it in pan. I can also right click and pan. If I select an object, I can select the object using the left click, and then I can right click on it for a shortcut menu if I wanted. The right click also works if I want to add primitives, like a basic cube for some reason, for whatever reason. Just so you know that that exists. The next thing, if I click on the object itself, let's go again on this review, it gives us access to the basic tools. So we have our move tool, and we have our vertical move, which doesn't allow us. Bambu forces every object to the plate. I want to remind you guys, you're like, I can't move this. I want some space. I want it to rotate. You won't get that feature. Something has to be touching the bottom. And there's a more advanced way to allow this to float in the middle of space, but we're not going to cover that in this video. The rotate tool. If I click on one of these points, red, green, or blue, I can rotate at a 15-degree angle, or 45, actually 45, and then 90. And then I can also pull this out and do this at smaller angles if I'm on the outside for my cursor of this. On the inside, locks at 45, and we're good. Next, we have our scale tool. Obviously, if I click one of the right corners here, it will scale proportionately, or uniform scaling. If I take any of the other ones, it will squash it. Okay. And you know what, that's good. We'll keep it there. We're not going to cover any painting. We're not going to cover any slicing or mesh boolean. That's funny, I almost said that backwards. And finally, what we'll do is we'll cover the basics of slicing it again. So we'll click slice the plate. And this is just this current plate. Then we'll come here, instead of saying print plate, unless it's connected to an actual printer on the network, and likely in the computer lab it's not, you'll need to change this from print plate to export slice plate. And then you can click export, you'll save it. I'm going to call it B1 droid pistol. I can open the folder, and there is my G-code 3MF file that is ready for the Bambu. Transfer that to an SD card, pop it into the slot for the SD card, and have it print. Again, making sure that the material for the sliced object is correct, otherwise the print may fail. That is very important. And you can do that for each of the parts here. Export slice supported. Also, the printer itself will tell us how long it printed, but you can also check here how long it's going to print, or take to print. So here's the total time of it. If you have any questions about this, please reach out to us either on YouTube, but we would recommend you stop by Funded Youth and ask in person, and we're more than welcome to help out. We hope you enjoy.